This month's Adventurous Inc. tells the story of Anita and her journey along the Pennine backbone of Britain to discover what it means to belong somewhere. After she was racially abused and told to get back where she belongs. The thing is, she's from Manchester. Now then, it feels appropriate to say. So this month's book is Anita Setty's I Belong Here, which belongs here because it starts here, right in Malham, in glorious Yorkshire. So this is what Anita has to say. My plan, though, was far from rigid, being open to the splendours of spontaneity. I'd long been haunted by a line from the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, "You make your own path as you walk." The Pennine range of hills and mountains is not confined to the Pennine Way, and I was keen not to restrict my journey to the pre-established footpath, but to do it my own way, to feel my way through places and let my gut, as well as my map, guide me. The terms desire paths and desire lines refer to improvised routes and unofficial paths. I've always been a fan of the desire line. True facts. The terms desire paths and desire lines refer to improvised routes and unofficial paths, forged by the way the walker wishes to travel, and I was open to the possibilities of those too. Above all, I wanted to transform that desire to make a journey through the wilderness into action. Beneath the skin, the bone. I'm walking through a landscape that's been scraped bare to the bone. A landscape of limestone. Once upon a time, the north of England was awash with tropical seas. Beneath the seas, the limestone beds were formed of the shells of marine organisms. I'm walking amid skeletal fragments of those marine organisms. Foraminifera and mollusks, coral and crinoids. Organisms which secreted shells made of calcite or argonite, shells that are left behind when they die. It's deeply haunting and a little eerie to think of such fossil remains all around, composing the landscape. Although limestone is a hard rock, it's also partially soluble, porous and permeable, so water not only moves over it, but through it, passing through its joints and cracks. Its fissures and faults. Rainwater containing carbon dioxide slowly dissolves and erodes the limestone to produce many of the magical landscape features that I'll encounter throughout my journey. The Pennines, like many limestone landscapes, is also an area full of faults. Cracks in the earth's surface, where the rock has divided into two parts that move against each other. Indeed, it has a zone of faulting called the Pennine Fault System. I walk close to the fault lines, the Craven Faults, major crustal fractures that run across the Pennines, caused by the shifting tectonic forces, and I walk higher into the limestone uplands. Here's a place that wears its faults with pride. Here's a place where brokenness has become a kind of bleak beauty. I continue to walk along the River Aire. The sheer force and energy of it swirling there has the effect of washing the mind free from worries. The churning is outside instead of inside, churning anxiety within. The sound silences noisy thoughts, as I instead wonder about the river. How long it's been there. How deep it might be. The swollen river, so strong and sure of itself and its direction, also becomes a subterranean stream somewhere near here, at a place called Water Sinks. I wonder what it's like inside the earth. And then I see ahead an enormous vertical limestone formation, which, were it not hailing, you'll be able to see over this shoulder, an enormous vertical limestone formation, like a giant cathedral or amphitheatre, but made entirely by nature itself, rather than any human hand. The sight stops me in my tracks. I catch my breath before walking towards the natural wonder. This is Malham Cove, a curved crag of Carboniferous limestone, formed by a waterfall carrying meltwater from glaciers during an ice age. Standing beneath it and looking up at it, and understanding it's existed for so long, and the processes leading to its formation began over 300 million years ago, my sense of self changes as I see my existence in such a scale. I see how fleeting my own lifespan is compared to these natural landscapes. From the top of the cove, it's often possible to see peregrines, as I did on the way up. I hope they're in shelter somewhere now. Glad I am. From the top of the cove, it's possible to see peregrines, an acquaintance has told me. I've longed to see in real life these powerful birds since reading The Peregrine by J. A. Baker and dreaming of the great grey-blue falcons beloved of rocky cliffs and upland areas. I start to keep an eye on the birds that soar past, seeing if I can spot any of the identifying features of peregrines. Peregrine chicks have been hatched high on the cove this year, according to the Malham Peregrine Project, and the adult birds have been spotted carrying food to the nesting sites. I ponder the lifespans of peregrines. Usually 10 years, the oldest known wild peregrine has lived to 17 years, a mere heartbeat compared to those millions of years of the Carboniferous era. The name peregrine is a translation of Latin, literally meaning pilgrim falcon, and originally it meant foreign. Medieval falconers often found peregrines difficult to capture in their high-up nests, and tried to do so while they were making their first flights or airborne pilgrimages. As a result, the word peregrine has evolved to mean wandering, travelling, and a peregrination, or a long journey. Time seems to pass both glacially and yet in the blink of an eye as I put one foot in front of the other. Moments seem cavernous and filled with possibility, and then the moment contracts. We finally reach the end of the steps, which give way to a giant silvery grey and white patched rocks, and even blocks of limestone called clints, which are above my head. It's as if we're stepping on the surface of the moon or another planet. Walking upon the rocks requires all my concentration not to slip and fall, and this feels like the backbone of Britain, here upon this harsh, hard yet beautiful surface. Sprouting between the stones grow luminous green plant life, what looks like fern and a species I cannot name. The great limestone clints stretch out all around, and even though through the thick soles of my boots I can feel how hard they are, how strong, it was worth climbing all the way to walk upon this wonder. A grey-blue bird suddenly swoops up from a rock and soars into the sky, and I'm sure it's a peregrine. It's so swift and agile, and it soon vanishes again before I can spot its identifying features. After all, the peregrine falcon is the fastest member of the animal kingdom, soaring to great heights and diving at speeds of over 300 kilometres per hour. That grey-blue blur, whatever it was, has made me happy, has made my heart lift to have seen even the possibility of a peregrine. Who could want more than the possibility of a peregrine? And a lovely view of Yorkshire and a nice cup of tea. This is such a haunted landscape. I think of all the creatures who've inhabited this place when warm seas wash through it, whose shells still remain forming sediment in layers of limestone. We shed some of the past skin, but other experiences stay with us like sediment. What experiences became fossils within us, shaping us? What are the fossil hauntings that live within you? So we had some wonderful words from Anita Sethi, from her wonderful book I Belong Here, which is our book in May. So I will be catching... Oh no, I've spilt my tea. It's a travesty. I was going to say something about catching up with Anita later in the month, but I'll probably edit this out. Apart from the tea spillage. Tea spillage is important. Can we see the cove yet? Can't really, can we? you think after this storm there might be some weather? No, we haven't got time to wait, have we? Right. So, this wonderful book, Anita Setti's I Belong Here, is May's issue of Adventurers Inc. Yeah, it's a fabulous read.